Hi, my name's Linda, and I've been living alone for 10 years. Lately, I've had some friends and even random strangers ask me how I'm able to cope living alone, and I guess it's a question that always catches me off guard. For I think one of the greatest privileges in life is to be able to live alone. So I'm making this video more to organize my thoughts on how to best answer that question. There's so many reasons why living alone is absolutely amazing, in my opinion. And I want to go through all those points and also first talk about three areas where I feel like I've been able to more or less master or overcome living alone. So, those three areas are safety, loneliness, and self sufficiency, which boredom kind of ties into. So, first up, safety. The first thing you ever want to buy when you live alone is a first aid kit. And, I think everybody comes across that fear of who will help you if you get injured at your home when you're all alone. So, having a first aid kit nearby is really helpful. Actually, I think the first week that I moved into my own home alone, I ended up getting hurt and kind of almost dramatically falling to the ground. And the thought came like, oh my gosh, I'm on the ground right now. Like, who's here to help? But I was able to patch myself up with first aid kit and just making sure you have that available. That's probably the number one first purchase to have. And also, next, be friendly with your neighbors. Maybe ask them to watch the house or your door or your place while you're away. Sometimes you don't even need to ask and they'll know to look out anyways. Keep a light on when you're out for long or going on vacation or have auto lights. And I invested in a camera system like the Ring doorbell and I signed up for their unlimited storage so I could always have a backup of recordings. And also investing in deadbolt locks or really strong locks. If I just depended on my key to turn lock, that was very easy to break into. I even tested it. So you could also, I went kind of the extra mile and tested out how easy it would be to break into my house, and you could also do that too. But yeah, get a deadbolt and have that really secure locks on your doors. Another optional thing you could do, which I did for a little bit, but I haven't felt the need to do it lately, is when you call an Uber or Lyft or a ride share, just to be extra safe, you can have them pick you up the street over so they don't know your exact address or location. Another thing that I ended up doing a few times was if I came home late at night and I just had weird, eerie feelings, it may be just in the back of my mind, like, what if someone's here in my house right now? I would just yell out. I would come in the front door and yell out, hello, anyone here? If you are, I'm calling the cops. And it was looking at it back. It's just such a silly thing to do, but it honestly did make me feel better. I think I did that maybe 5 times in the past 10 years. So, doing things like that, having your safety measures in place. I think when I first moved in, my parents were extra cautious and was like, Linda, don't let anyone know that you live alone. You can't let anyone know. So they were very cautious of also if you have maintenance people over. I think my dad always offered to like be there and stuff. But if you can't have someone over when maintenance is over, just be wary of your surroundings. Don't like maybe don't dress in your nightgown going to greet people. I mean, there's just little things that you could do to just make sure you feel a little bit more safe. Of course, my neighbors, they know I live alone. They watch out for me, and yeah. So they're not as overprotective, but they still look out. Okay, so the second theme I want to talk about is loneliness. A lot of the people that ask me for advice are people that have recently come out of a really long-term relationship, or maybe their spouse has passed away and they have found themselves living alone by themselves for the very first time in a long time or ever. For myself, loneliness, uh, when it comes to relationships, I guess it was something that I was living alone before my relationship a little bit, so learning learning how to be alone, I was able to revert back to those memories of how to care for myself. But even after a long-term relationship, so during the 10 years that I was living alone, I for most of those years I was in a long-term relationship. I was still living alone, of course, but I was still in a relationship. But a good 3 to 4 years of that, after that relationship, I was completely single and not dating. It kind of was during COVID as well, so it kind of contributed to that. There were those feelings of loneliness for me in that sense, but I think some things that helped, but of course aren't the same, but helped me were one was actually a weighted blanket. That's a purchase I made that, it's not the same, but you'd be surprised if you try it and, you're missing just like a warm hug or something. Like a weighted blanket really helped. Um, Being able to distract yourself and surround yourself socially. So I would call my parents every other day. I would be able to visit them weekly. I would have weekly outings with my friends, but I also found that even though I always felt that I was an extrovert growing up, maybe as I got older, I could only do like one friend outing a week. I can't fill up both my weekends, and or else my social capacity would be filled. When I was with my boyfriend, we wouldn't see each other every day because we lived in different states as well. We would see each other maybe once or twice a week. And other social tips, you can join groups, sign up for classes. So for me, I ended up doing a master's, which had a very strong cohort, an online cohort. We had our own group chats, and there were weekly gatherings all the time. And even during COVID, that was during the time that I did my master's. There was like a lot of online meetups, online classes. And if you don't want to spend money on, like, that's a lot of money for masters, you could join meetup.com. That's another area where you could meet up with different groups and different people. You could also create your own meetup groups and just you could lean into the online. So it's not for everybody, but I started streaming playing video games online, for instance. For example, for example, there's super nice communities I've been able to meet through there, and I didn't join it for that, but I could see how this could help fill up that social bar. And another thing about loneliness, so I know my family would always recommend me get pets. I never had a pet, a dog or a cat. I had maybe these wild bunnies that would hang out underneath my patio, so I would sometimes feed them carrots like once a month when I would see them or something, or leave out carrots for them. Maybe my plants were kind of my pets because I would get sad when they looked wilted, but I never really had any dogs or cats or any pets. But I know that's recommended by many. The last thing I want to note about loneliness is that loneliness is something I've always been self-conscious of for the longest time. But I realized, especially in the last few years, that, at least for me, it was never the fear of being alone at night by myself. It was how I looked being alone. And social media didn't help with this at all. So cutting off social media has been one of the best things I have done for my own mental health. There was always pressure to post the next outing with friends. I think also did help that my 3 closest friends were never online. And so I could just sever that online presence easier with my social circle. It took me some time to get over that. When I'm out and about, I don't always have to be surrounded by people or conversing with someone. So that really helped with just realizing like what was I afraid of with being alone. And at least for my motivation, it was like honestly what people thought of me. And so cutting off that judgment and others just really helped with my sanity. And yeah, being alone, I realized being alone with myself, especially, was pretty fucking awesome. And that goes into my next theme, my third theme of self sufficiency. So, self sufficiency, doing things alone on your own. So, you don't necessarily have to rely on that friend group or that significant other or just socializing with other human beings. I realize with self-sufficiency, I was able to just entertain myself in my own presence. I never got bored. Even when I was single, not even dating, stuck at home during COVID, I actually surprised myself by how I never found boredom. I always was just doing things, different hobbies. I have a bunch of different hobbies that were keeping me busy and keeping my mind fueled. So, for instance, hobbies at home that I did a lot of music, trying to learn the piano better, songs on the guitar, and just singing as loud as possible. I even set up like a karaoke system, just singing to myself. It was really fun. I spent hours and hours doing that. I bought an easel and I set up a painting station and did a couple paintings. And cooking was a huge thing as well. Just during that time of my life was probably also really dark being alone because I went through a layoff and trying to find a job for an entire year. That was really hard for me. And cooking, learning how to cook better, experimenting with different recipes, that was probably the most fulfilling hobby I really leaned into and embraced. And it's something that's sustaining for my body, keeps me alive. It's something that is necessary and it's only for me. I'm feeding myself. I'm creating my own sustenance, and it's really rewarding. There's also other little projects you could do. Some things I did was completing puzzles while listening to podcasts. I listened to different podcasts that were amazing, like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, The Left-Right Game. That one's a little bit scary, but maybe not the best for some living alone, but I really enjoyed it. And recently, I've been really into Ramit Sethi's financial podcast, personal finance podcasts. And of course, throughout all these years, I've always been involved in video games, playing some type of video game with a good story. And that just keeps me preoccupied, keeps me busy, and keeps me from being bored ever. So those were the 3 themes, and I wanted to go through my pros really with living alone is you could record yourself making weird videos, singing at the top of your lungs, testing out bad music on guitar, piano, whatever, really leaning into your weird. Like, when is another time you're gonna be alone like this, and maybe you'll step into another relationship or have someone else that's in your life that you'll eventually live with again. And just think of all the things you could do alone and just really be truly, truly weird, whatever that might be. Not having to share the TV, couch, bathroom, kitchen, anything and everything. Not having to worry about your roommate breaking stuff, not having to see post-it notes from them that are passive aggressive everywhere, and only having to deal with your own mess and clutter and not anybody else's, like having bug infestations in expired food they left out. Okay, maybe those are from personal experience, but you get the idea. I absolutely love, 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 love living alone. And I hope that some of these tips, or even if you take a little bit of it, you can take with you too and start absolutely falling in love with living alone like I do as well. If you have tips for living alone, share them here, and I would love to hear them. Thanks for watching.